The Quiet Town and the Unexpected Visitor. In a small, quiet town nestled on the edge of a sleepy highway, there was a McDonald's that locals frequented, a place that was hardly ever empty, but never particularly crowded either. It was one of those places where the pace of life seemed slower, and the air smelled of freshly fried potatoes and the faint hum of a worn-out soda machine. Today was no different. The lunch rush had long passed, and the place was filled with a regular crowd, mostly first responders, police officers, firefighters, and paramedics who had just wrapped up intense shifts. It was their sanctuary, a place to grab a quick bite, relax for a few minutes, and prepare for the next call. The usual sounds of trays clattering and soft chatter filled the air as the men and women in uniform savored a rare moment of calm before diving back into the chaos of their demanding jobs. The restaurant felt familiar, almost like a second home to them. And though they all worked in high-pressure fields, there was a sense of peace in their shared company. For these first responders, a burger in hand, a soft drink to sip, and a conversation about everything under the sun was often the most normal thing they could experience all day. It was a brief escape, a pause before their lives could resume the intensity and urgency that their jobs required. But little did they know, this particular afternoon would be different. Just after noon, the door to McDonald's chimed, signaling the entrance of another customer. For a moment, no one looked up. It was just another face in the crowd, another person popping in for a meal. But then, as the newcomer stepped forward, something about him caught their attention. He was tall, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, and there was an air of ease around him that didn't seem to belong in this quiet corner of the world. The soft clink of trays and the hum of idle chatter slowed as a few heads turned, noticing the figure making his way to the counter. At first, no one said anything, unsure if they were imagining it, but the whispers began to grow. "Wait, is that Elon Musk?" One of the EMTs whispered to his colleague, his voice tinged with disbelief. His colleague squinted, scanning the man's features. "No way. It can't be." The first responder, now more certain, leaned forward. "I swear, that's him." The conversation buzzed across the room. People exchanged glances, unsure whether they were witnessing something completely improbable or just imagining it. But as more of them took a closer look, they couldn't ignore it any longer. That was Elon Musk, the same man known for launching rockets into space, revolutionizing the car industry with Tesla, and pushing the limits of technology with Neuralink. And here he was, standing in the middle of a McDonald's, in a quiet town where nothing ever happened. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. The person who was often hailed as one of the most innovative minds of the 21st century was here, ordering a meal just like anyone else. It was a surreal moment, one that no one in the room could have expected. It was Elon Musk, no entourage, no bodyguards, just a regular guy trying to get a quick lunch. He stepped up to the counter, smiling at the cashier who had already started to process the line of customers. As she looked up to take his order, she paused for a moment, staring at him, trying to reconcile the face she had only seen in news articles with the man standing in front of her. "I'll have a quarter pounder with cheese, large fries, and a Coke," Musk said casually, as though ordering a meal at McDonald's was an everyday occurrence for him. The cashier blinked, still processing the fact that she was standing face to face with one of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world. For a brief second, she hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Can I pay with Dogecoin?" Musk asked with a playful grin, adding a touch of humor to the situation. The cashier, still in awe, tried to stifle a nervous laugh. "Sorry, we only take credit cards," she responded with a smile. Musk chuckled, pulling out his card and paying like any other customer. It was a small act, but somehow it made the whole situation seem even more surreal. The man who had changed industries and captured the world's attention was now standing in line, waiting for his meal, just like everyone else. As Musk stepped aside to wait for his order, a few of the first responders began to gather the courage to approach him. One firefighter, a little bolder than the rest, finally walked over to him with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "So, what brings you to a McDonald's in the middle of nowhere?" he asked, trying to sound casual, though his voice betrayed a hint of awe. Musk glanced up from his phone, offering a warm smile. "Well," he said with a shrug, "I've been traveling a lot lately, and sometimes you just want something simple. Plus, McDonald's makes a pretty good burger." The room seemed to relax at his response, the tension easing. In that moment, it was as though the world's most famous billionaire had become just another guy, another person enjoying a casual lunch break, living in the moment and embracing the simplicity of life. Musk's genuine nature and lack of pretension left everyone around him at ease. As more people began to approach, the questions began to flow. The firefighters, police officers, and paramedics started asking him about his various ventures, his ambitious plans for Mars, the future of Tesla, and the ever-evolving world of AI. Musk, true to his nature, answered each question with humor and ease. He laughed off the space-related queries, adding, "Actually, yeah, we're working hard to get that Mars mission going. But today, it's all about the burger," he said, his tone light and humorous. The casualness with which he handled the question surprised many in the room. Here was a man who was used to being in the spotlight, constantly answering questions from reporters and the public. Yet there was no sign of the usual guarded nature that accompanied celebrities. He didn't seem to mind talking to anyone, answering their questions, and making them feel like they were having a genuine conversation with a friend. At some point, one of the officers, clearly amused by the whole situation, joked, "Have you ever thought about opening a Tesla drive-thru? We could save a ton on gas." The restaurant erupted into laughter at the suggestion. Musk smiled, clearly enjoying the humor. "Hey, you never know. We're always looking at new ideas. Maybe electric fast food joints are the next big thing," he said, with a playful glint in his eye. And just like that, the room became a place of light-hearted jokes and casual conversation. What started as a normal lunch hour quickly transformed into an unexpected gathering. The first responders, who had originally been wrapped up in their own world, now found themselves chatting with one of the most influential figures on the planet. And what was even more surprising was how normal it all felt. But this encounter was about to take an even more unexpected turn. With the casual banter still swirling in the air, one of the firefighters, clearly intrigued by the direction of the conversation, asked a question that shifted the tone entirely. His word hung in the air, more serious than anything that had been said before. "Do you ever think about how your work affects people like us?" he asked, his voice taking on a more somber tone. "I mean, the stuff you're doing. Rockets, electric cars, AI. How do you think that impacts what we do out here on the ground?" The question caught everyone off guard. It was no longer about rockets or electric cars or even fast food jokes. It was about something deeper, something far more personal. The question, though simple, carried an enormous weight. It was a question from those who saw life and death every day, who relied on technology to do their jobs and save lives. Musk paused for a moment, his face shifting to reflect the weight of the question. He glanced around the room, his eyes scanning the faces of the first responders. There was no longer a distance between them. They weren't just random strangers asking about his business ventures. They were real people, and their question was one that carried genuine concern and curiosity. The room grew quiet as Musk thought carefully about his response. The chatter faded, and in that moment, it was clear that something profound was about to unfold. A conversation that changed perspectives. The room fell into a brief but profound silence. The buzz of casual conversation that had filled McDonald's moments earlier seemed to evaporate, replaced by a palpable stillness. Everyone, from the police officers to the firefighters and paramedics, turned their attention to Elon Musk, waiting for a response that they didn't know they needed to hear. Musk seemed to take his time, his gaze shifting around the room as if contemplating not only the question but the gravity of the moment. His fingers, still holding his phone, hovered in midair as he considered his words. The question had caught him off guard, but it was clear that the firefighter's words had struck a chord. After a long moment of reflection, Musk slowly lifted his eyes to meet those around him. "You know," he began, his voice softer now, more measured than it had been moments before. "I don't think I really thought about it in that way until now." The crowd, which had once been filled with light-hearted jokes and playful banter, now leaned in, captivated by the sincerity in Musk's voice. It was a tone none of them had expected, one that seemed to carry a weight far beyond the context of his usual interviews or public appearances. "I spent so much of my life focused on building things for the future. You know, rockets, electric cars, AI. Stuff that's meant to push humanity forward, to take us to Mars, to create a more sustainable world. But here, in this room, with all of you, it's becoming clearer to me that the future isn't just about the technology. It's about the people who are out there using it to improve lives. It's about those who are putting in the work on the ground, day after day, to protect and serve." His voice trailed off for a moment, and the room hung on his every word. The first responders, who had once felt like mere spectators in Musk's orbit, now realized that this was a different kind of conversation. This was not an exchange between a fan and a celebrity, but between people who understood that their work, no matter how seemingly distant, was deeply intertwined. Musk's eyes softened as he glanced around the room again. There was something vulnerable in his gaze, something that suggested that he was seeing the people in front of him for the first time, not as fans, not as admirers, but as real individuals with real jobs that had tangible impacts on society. "I've always believed that technology can improve lives," Musk continued, his voice steady but introspective. "But seeing all of you here today, in this moment, it's really making me think about how we need to focus on creating technologies that don't just look ahead to space or the future of transportation, but that also have an immediate impact here on Earth, for people like you." The firefighter who had asked the question, now visibly moved, nodded slowly. The words felt heavy, grounded in reality, and filled with a new sense of purpose. "We just do our jobs," he said quietly, his voice carrying a certain humility. "But sometimes it feels like what we do doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You know, we don't build rockets or change the world like you do." For a moment, it seemed like the room collectively held its breath. The weight of that sentiment hung in the air like a cloud, its implications far-reaching. How often had these first responders, day after day, placed their lives on the line only to wonder if their work was truly valued? How often did they question whether their contribution had any lasting impact, especially in a world where technology and innovation seemed to be racing ahead at breakneck speeds? But what happened next was nothing short of transformative. Musk's expression shifted. He seemed to take the firefighter's words to heart, and without hesitation, he shook his head, his face serious now. "No," he said, his voice clear and firm. "You're wrong about that." The room seemed to exhale in unison. The firefighter's words, leaden with doubt, were met with such intensity and sincerity that it was as if the entire atmosphere in McDonald's had shifted. "You," Musk continued, "are the ones who matter the most. You are the ones who keep society functioning, who keep people safe. What I do, what we all do in technology, wouldn't mean anything if it wasn't for people like you, who are on the front lines, who risk your lives every day to protect the rest of us." His words landed like a tidal wave, crashing against any doubts the first responders had ever carried about the importance of their work. They had grown used to polite thanks, the quick nods of appreciation from the public, but this was different. Elon Musk, one of the most influential and successful figures in the world, wasn't just thanking them in passing. He was genuinely acknowledging their work, elevating it to a level that no one had quite imagined. "You are just as important, if not more important, than anything else I do," Musk added, his voice tinged with emotion. "You're the ones who make it possible for the rest of us to dream big. Without you, without the courage and sacrifice you make every day, nothing else we build, nothing else we accomplish, would matter. You're the foundation of it all." The firefighter stood still, the weight of those words sinking in deeply. He swallowed hard, his emotions welling up inside him. It was clear that the praise he had just received was far from routine. It wasn't the kind of gratitude that was simply given out of politeness. It was sincere and profound. The rest of the room fell silent, the enormity of what Musk had just said hanging over them like a blanket of warmth. It was an affirmation that no one had expected, a reminder that no matter how groundbreaking the technology or how far-reaching the innovations, it was the human connection that made it all possible. One by one, the first responders exchanged glances, their faces softening with understanding. In that moment, they were no longer just employees of a small-town McDonald's. They were individuals whose work mattered, who made a difference every day, whose value extended far beyond the work they did, but to the very heart of what society needed to thrive. Musk didn't stop there. He leaned forward slightly, as though urging them all to realize the impact of their efforts. "You," he said with emphasis, "are the unsung heroes. The world may not always see it, but what you do is the backbone of everything else. It's not just about building rockets or cars. It's about making sure that the people who are helping others get the chance to do their jobs safely, effectively, and with the best tools available." The room was still. No one knew what to say at first, overwhelmed by the sincerity and depth of the moment. It was a profound conversation, one that bridged the gap between Silicon Valley and first responders, between billionaires and the everyday heroes who made it possible for the rest of society to exist safely. Musk's words weren't just platitudes. They were an invitation to see the bigger picture, the connection between technology and humanity, between those who innovate and those who work tirelessly to ensure the safety of others. And as the conversation continued, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The initial excitement of seeing the celebrity had faded away, replaced by something much more meaningful: a shared understanding, a sense of purpose, and an unspoken acknowledgement that every person in the room had a role to play in making the world a better place. In that small McDonald's, on a seemingly ordinary afternoon, something extraordinary had happened. A moment of connection, a brief encounter between a billionaire and the people who work tirelessly every day to save lives, had created a ripple that would resonate long after the lunch rush ended. It was a reminder that no matter how much technology advanced, no matter how far humanity reached, it was the people who made it all possible. And sometimes, those people just needed to hear that they mattered. A lasting impact and unlikely connections. The mood in McDonald's had shifted from casual banter to something far deeper, a realization that neither Elon Musk nor the first responders had anticipated when they walked into the restaurant that day. The exchange of words, sincere and thoughtful, had not only bridged the gap between the world of technology and the world of everyday heroes, but it also created a bond that, in the moment, felt unbreakable. As the weight of Musk's words lingered in the air, something extraordinary began to happen. The group of first responders, who were used to going about their work without much recognition or fanfare, now felt seen in a way that was profoundly meaningful. They weren't just firefighters, police officers, or paramedics. Today, they were the heartbeat of society, recognized for the true impact they had on the world. The first responder who had asked Musk the question stood motionless for a moment, processing the gravity of what had just transpired. His chest swelled with pride, but also a deep sense of gratitude. He had never expected this kind of recognition from someone as influential as Musk. Yet here they were, sitting in a fast food restaurant, talking about life, technology, and the importance of the people who did the hard, often thankless work on the ground. Musk's words didn't just hit him personally, they resonated with everyone in the room. The officers, the paramedics, the firefighters, they all understood the significance of what was being said. But it wasn't just a moment of recognition, it was a moment of reflection. What Musk had said had touched something deeper, something that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface for years. These were people who had seen the worst that humanity could offer. They had faced danger head-on, sometimes at great personal risk, all in the name of protecting others. Yet time and time again, they had found themselves standing in the shadows of society's attention, often overlooked in the rush to praise others for their accomplishments. This brief moment with Musk, though, had given them a glimpse of what it felt like to be truly acknowledged. The paramedic, who had been quietly listening to the conversation unfold, spoke up softly. "You know, I've been in this job for a long time, and I've seen a lot of things. But it's moments like this that make you realize how much more we could do if we had better resources, better tools, more support. We don't ask for much, but having someone like you understand what we do, it means more than you think." Musk nodded, his expression sincere. "I get it," he said thoughtfully. "That's why I'm trying to push for more advancements in technology. Things that can help people like you, in ways that you might not even know yet. It's about making sure that the tools you have are as advanced as possible, so you can do your jobs more safely and effectively." The conversation shifted, once again, to the importance of progress, but this time with a focus on how technology could be leveraged to make the jobs of first responders easier and safer. Musk's thoughts were not merely theoretical anymore. They were grounded in the real-world needs of those who lived and breathed in the midst of crisis every day. For the first responders in the room, this wasn't just a conversation about high-tech gadgets or space missions. It was about tangible changes that could impact their lives. "How can we make that happen?" asked one of the police officers, his voice carrying a note of both curiosity and skepticism. "You talk about technology, but we're in the trenches every day. We need real-world solutions that we can use right now, not just ideas for the future." Musk's eyes lit up at the challenge. "I agree," he said, leaning in slightly. "And that's the kind of thinking I need. It's not enough to just have a vision for the future. We have to be thinking about how the tools we create can be used today. For example, how can we create AI that helps you analyze data faster when you're out in the field? How can we improve communication between responders to make sure you're always in sync when lives are on the line?" The group exchanged glances, and there was a collective sense of optimism that hadn't been there before. For the first time, they could see the possibility of change, not just theoretical change, but real, actionable change that could improve their work and, by extension, save lives. But it wasn't just about the technology or the work that they did. There was something more profound that was unfolding in that small McDonald's that afternoon, a shift in perspective. An acknowledgement that, no matter how far technology advanced, it would always need the human element to thrive. As much as space travel and electric cars were revolutionary, they would mean little if they weren't built to serve the people who needed them most. And it was in this exchange, between one of the world's most visionary minds and a group of selfless first responders, that the true power of human connection was realized. Elon Musk, for all his accomplishments and ambitions, had been reminded of something fundamental, that it wasn't just about building things, it was about building a world that made life better for everyone, especially those who put themselves at risk for the greater good. As the conversation began to wind down, the tension in the room had all but vanished. What started as a chance encounter had evolved into something much more meaningful. It was no longer just a matter of celebrity meeting admiration. It was about mutual respect, understanding, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. Before he left, Musk looked around the room one last time. "I'm serious about this," he said, his voice carrying a note of determination. "If any of you have ideas about how we can use technology to make your jobs easier, safer, or more effective, I want to hear about it. Let's make this happen. Let's work together on this." The first responders looked at each other, surprised by the genuine invitation to collaborate. For years, they had been working with outdated tools and limited resources, never truly feeling that their voices were being heard by those who could make a difference. But today, they had been given a seat at the table, not just as employees of emergency services, but as active contributors to the future of technology. Musk, with a final nod, picked up his meal and prepared to leave. "Take care of yourselves out there," he said with a sincere smile, his voice quiet but heartfelt. "You're the ones making the real difference." As he walked out of McDonald's, the room was left in stunned silence. The day, which had started as a routine lunch break, had turned into something far more profound, a moment that would resonate with everyone present for years to come. It wasn't just about the recognition they had received, or the opportunities that might arise from the conversation. It was about the reminder that no matter how much the world changed, the people who worked tirelessly on the ground, fighting fires, saving lives, and keeping their communities safe, would always be the backbone of society. In that small corner of a quiet town, Elon Musk had shown them something that went beyond technology, beyond space travel. He had shown them the power of appreciation, of understanding, and of working together toward a common goal. For the first responders, it was a lesson they would carry with them long after the doors of McDonald's had closed and the world outside resumed its fast-paced rhythm. It was clear, technology was important, but humanity was everything. The ripple effect of one conversation. Days passed, but the moment in McDonald's continued to linger in the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed it. It was an encounter that, in a way, had been completely ordinary. A simple lunch break, a chance meeting with a famous billionaire. But in reality, it had become something much more. It was the beginning of a quiet revolution in how people viewed their own roles in society, and how the worlds of technology and humanity could intersect in ways no one had fully imagined. For the first responders who had been part of the conversation, the impact was profound. That brief exchange with Elon Musk had sparked a deeper reflection on their work and the ways they interacted with the tools at their disposal. They had always known that their jobs were important, that their work mattered, but hearing it from Musk, the man who had pushed the boundaries of innovation and technology, somehow made it feel different. It gave their efforts a renewed sense of purpose. The conversations didn't end that day. In fact, they had only just begun. The officers, firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs who had gathered at that McDonald's started talking amongst themselves about what had transpired. They discussed not only the acknowledgement of their work, but also how they could be part of the technological advancements that Musk had hinted at. Could they really help shape the future of the tools they used every day? Could they find new ways to make their jobs safer and more effective? As Musk had suggested, these weren't just questions anymore. They were challenges, ones they were eager to meet head-on. Over the following weeks, small changes began to unfold within the ranks of the local emergency services. There was a palpable sense of collaboration and energy, a drive to rethink how they approached their work. For the first time in a long time, they felt not just like workers in a system, but like key contributors to something greater. And although the idea of integrating new technology into their daily lives seemed like a distant goal, they began to feel that they could be a part of it. They could play a role in shaping the future. One of the paramedics, a young woman named Sarah, who had been particularly moved by Musk's words, took it upon herself to reach out to local tech companies, sharing her ideas for how wearable technology could improve response times and safety for first responders. She wasn't a tech expert by trade, but after her brief conversation with Musk, she felt more confident in pursuing her ideas. It was as if his words had lit a spark within her that would not go out. Sarah wasn't the only one with new ideas. The firefighters, who had often felt the weight of outdated equipment, began to brainstorm ways they could make better use of new technologies, such as using AI to predict fire patterns or implement drones for search and rescue missions. They knew these ideas weren't going to change their work overnight, but the thought that they could help influence how technology could aid their missions gave them a sense of excitement they hadn't had in years. And the police officers, always working with limited resources and under extreme pressure, found themselves discussing how better communication tools could help them coordinate more effectively during high-stress situations. They dreamed of systems that could instantly analyze data and provide them with critical information faster than ever before. Musk's challenge had opened their eyes to the fact that the future of their work could be shaped by the very technology they had often relied on, but never truly understood. But it wasn't just about the first responders. The entire town seemed to carry the energy from that one conversation forward. As news of Musk's visit spread, people who had never really thought about the sacrifices of first responders began to take a deeper interest in their work. The community started reaching out to offer support, whether it was in the form of donations, volunteering, or simply expressing gratitude for the everyday heroes who worked to keep them safe. The owner of the McDonald's, who had quietly observed the entire encounter from behind the counter, noticed an uptick in customers who seemed eager to express their appreciation for first responders. He decided to implement a small but meaningful change at his restaurant. Every week, he would offer free meals to a few local first responders, recognizing their contributions to the community. It was a small gesture, but it resonated deeply. The community rallied behind it, and soon other local businesses followed suit, offering discounts or perks for those who served the public. Even the local school district was inspired. Teachers began talking to their students about the value of first responders, about the ways technology could support their work, and about how everyone, regardless of their job, had a role to play in shaping the future. A special event was organized in honor of these public servants, where students could meet with firefighters, police officers, and paramedics to learn more about their work and how they use technology to keep the community safe. Meanwhile, in the world of technology, the conversation Elon Musk had started didn't stop with the first responders. It rippled out, reaching engineers and innovators who were inspired by the idea of creating more accessible and practical tools for those on the front lines. Startups in Silicon Valley, already focused on improving AI, drones, and wearable tech, began to look more seriously at how their products could be adapted for emergency response teams. Musk himself, though busy with his numerous ventures, made a few public comments and interviews that continued to build on the ideas he had shared in that McDonald's. He talked about the importance of building technology that serves the needs of those who serve others, of recognizing that the future isn't just about technology for technology's sake, but about technology that is accessible, practical, and meaningful in the lives of the people who need it most. He spoke passionately about how we, as a society, should be designing tech that didn't just cater to luxury markets or individual desires, but that actively improved safety, health, and quality of life for those who put themselves at risk every day. The future of technology should not just be about what's possible, it should be about what's necessary, Musk had said during one interview, a sentiment that further resonated with the people who had met him that day in the quiet town. This was a conversation that transcended industries, occupations, and communities. It was a conversation about how we all fit into the puzzle of the future, about how the people working tirelessly in the trenches, day in and day out, have an invaluable role in shaping the world that will come next. For the first responders, the ripple effect of that conversation had rekindled their passion for their work. They didn't just feel appreciated, they felt empowered. They began to see themselves as part of the solution, rather than an afterthought in a world that seemed to be moving at lightning speed. And as they collaborated with each other and with technology experts, they realized they could bring about the change they wanted to see, one small step at a time. That quiet McDonald's, tucked away on a street corner in a small town, had become the birthplace of an unlikely movement. It was a place where, for one brief moment, technology and humanity collided in a way that would forever change how people thought about innovation, sacrifice, and community. And as the days passed, the ripple effects of that meeting continued to spread, inspiring not only the first responders but the entire town, and eventually the world, to rethink what it meant to truly make a difference. The real lesson that emerged from that afternoon wasn't about technology or celebrity. It was about connection, the way that one simple conversation could inspire so many people to step up, look forward, and work together toward a future where both technology and humanity worked hand in hand. It was a reminder that when we recognize the worth in others and empower them to bring their ideas to life, we all move forward together. The beginning of a movement. As the months passed, the energy that had begun in that small McDonald's continued to build, growing into something much larger than anyone had anticipated. What had started as a chance encounter between Elon Musk and a group of first responders had turned into a movement, one that crossed boundaries, united communities, and sparked a dialogue about the intersection of technology, human service, and innovation. In the wake of that extraordinary lunch, the community began to feel the ripple effects. The town, once a quiet and unassuming place, became a beacon of inspiration for others. What had initially felt like an isolated moment, a celebrity sighting followed by casual conversation, had unexpectedly become the catalyst for real change, proving that even the smallest interactions could have profound and lasting effects. For the first responders who had been part of that lunch, the transformation in their mindset was palpable. Gone were the days of quietly accepting their place in the background, of simply putting in the hours without questioning whether their work truly mattered. They now saw themselves as more than just cogs in a well-oiled machine. Instead, they began to envision themselves as active participants in shaping the future. The spark of possibility had been lit in them that afternoon, and it continued to burn brightly in the weeks and months that followed. Sarah, the paramedic who had reached out to tech companies with her ideas for wearable technology, became a driving force in this change. Her inbox, once quiet and filled only with standard work communications, was now brimming with emails from engineers, product developers, and even other first responders who had heard about her efforts. The ideas she had started sharing about improving communication tools, creating real-time health monitoring systems, and enhancing safety protocols through technology began to take shape in ways she had never imagined. She was no longer just an everyday paramedic. She was someone who could influence the very tools she used in her job. Sarah's initiative didn't go unnoticed. Soon, other paramedics in neighboring towns were reaching out to her, eager to collaborate on projects that could better serve their needs in the field. They too had been inspired by that chance meeting, and they too wanted to make a difference. This growing network of first responders was like a quiet revolution unfolding, a movement fueled not by politics or grand gestures, but by a shared desire to improve the world they lived in, one life-saving decision at a time. Meanwhile, the firefighters who had sat at the same table as Sarah that day in McDonald's were deep into discussions about how they could integrate technology into their work. They had taken Elon Musk's challenge to heart. They had seen firsthand the risks they faced on every call, the moments when their safety and the safety of others were jeopardized because they lacked the right tools or information. But now they had a renewed sense of purpose. With Musk's encouragement still fresh in their minds, they started working with tech startups, exploring ways to incorporate predictive fire modeling into their operations. By using AI, they could predict the spread of fires with greater accuracy, potentially saving lives and reducing the number of resources needed to control wildfires. Drones, too, began to play a larger role in their efforts. The idea of using drones to scout out dangerous areas, provide real-time video feeds of fire scenes, and even drop fire retardant in hard-to-reach areas started to take root. The firefighters weren't just dreaming about the future. They were making it a reality, step by step. In the police force, things were evolving as well. The officers who had joked with Musk about creating a Tesla drive-thru now found themselves seriously considering how technology could be used to streamline their operations. With the pressure of high-stakes situations always looming, they were increasingly focused on finding ways to improve their coordination and response times. The idea of using advanced communication systems that could instantly link officers with real-time data and maps, became a priority. They also began to explore how AI could help with predictive policing, identifying patterns and potential hotspots before incidents occurred. These were ambitious ideas, ones that required both time and resources, but the officers were more motivated than ever to make them happen. As the first responders continued to push for better tools and systems, the town itself began to take notice. The movement, sparked by Musk's visit, had turned into a grassroots effort. Local businesses, inspired by the example set by the McDonald's owner, began to offer more than just discounts. They started creating platforms where community members could contribute ideas, volunteer their time, or donate resources to help fund technology that could support first responders. The town's schools, too, were swept up in this energy. In classrooms, students began to discuss how technology could be used to help others, to make the world safer and more efficient. They learned about AI, renewable energy, and space exploration, not as abstract concepts, but as tools they could one day use in their own communities. The schools began partnering with local tech companies to host hackathons and innovation challenges, where students could work with professionals to come up with new solutions to real-world problems. The future was no longer a distant dream. It was a project they were actively building together. But perhaps the most significant change occurred at the broader level, as the movement gained momentum. The conversation that had started with a small group of first responders in McDonald's had begun to spread beyond the town, catching the attention of local and national governments, corporations, and other organizations. People began to see the value in combining technology with the vital work of first responders. They recognized that if the world wanted to make true progress, it needed to focus not only on new inventions, but on how those inventions could be used to help those who risk their lives every day. Musk's visit had opened the floodgates for a new kind of dialogue, one centered around collaboration, empathy, and mutual respect. In the months that followed, local governments started to fund research into developing advanced tools for first responders. Federal agencies took notice of the innovations coming out of the small town and offered support in the form of grants and resources. Entrepreneurs began to look at the needs of first responders not as an afterthought, but as a crucial area for investment. They saw an opportunity not just to profit, but to genuinely make a difference in the lives of those who served their communities. The impact of Elon Musk's visit, of his decision to take the time to engage with ordinary people and recognize their importance, had sent shockwaves across industries and communities. What had once been a conversation about technology and innovation had turned into a broader conversation about social responsibility, community engagement, and the importance of connecting with the people who make the world function. For Musk, too, the visit had changed his perspective. In subsequent interviews and speeches, he often referred back to that afternoon in McDonald's as one of the most meaningful experiences of his career. It had reminded him that, while pushing the boundaries of technology was important, it was just as vital to make sure that the technologies being developed had a direct positive impact on the lives of everyday people. And it wasn't just about creating tools. It was about empowering the people who used those tools to build a better, safer world. That fateful lunch, which had seemed so casual at the time, was now recognized as a pivotal moment in the development of new technologies and new ways of thinking. It was a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes don't come from grand speeches or high-level conferences. They come from simple conversations, from recognizing the value in others, and from working together toward a common goal. The town, the first responders, and even Musk himself had been part of something much bigger than they could have imagined. And as the world slowly began to change, it was clear that the conversation in McDonald's wasn't just a moment in time. It was the beginning of a movement that would continue to evolve, bringing communities together and inspiring a new generation of innovators to build a future where technology and humanity worked in harmony for the greater good. The legacy of a simple act. As the years went by, the movement that had begun with a single conversation in a small McDonald's continued to grow, blossoming into something far beyond what anyone had initially anticipated. The town, once quiet and unassuming, had become a symbol of how communities, when united by a common purpose, could transform the world around them. The ripple effects of that simple lunch with Elon Musk had spread far and wide, reaching not only other cities and towns, but also influencing the very way society thought about the intersection of technology and humanity. The first responders in the town, the ones who had been at the heart of it all, had become leaders in the movement. Sarah, The paramedic who had been so inspired by Musk's words had gone on to become a well-respected voice in the world of emergency medical services, EMS. Her work with wearable technology, devices that could monitor a responder's vitals and provide real-time data to dispatch centers, had revolutionized the way paramedics interacted with their equipment. What began as a personal project, driven by a desire to improve her own safety and efficiency, had now become a standard practice for EMS teams across the country. Sarah's collaboration with tech companies, many of whom had been inspired by Musk's visit, led to the creation of an entire suite of tools designed specifically for first responders. These tools weren't just about improving safety or communication. They were about saving lives. Her work had not only been featured in countless publications, but had inspired many young people to pursue careers in both technology and emergency services. Schools across the nation now held workshops and classes that combined coding, engineering, and public service. It was clear that the next generation of innovators would not only be tech-focused, but would also have an understanding of the real-world problems that first responders faced. In the fire department, the drones and AI tools that had been discussed in those early days began to see real-world implementation. These technologies had proven invaluable during large-scale wildfires, allowing firefighters to better track fire patterns and predict where resources were needed most. The firefighters who had once dreamed about integrating these tools into their work were now actively training with them. The technology had become so advanced that it was even being used in search and rescue operations, where drones could quickly scout dangerous areas and send back live video feeds to rescue teams on the ground. But perhaps the most striking change had been in how the town itself had embraced the spirit of innovation and collaboration. What had started as a small-town effort to support first responders had quickly spread to include a broader vision for the community, one where technology was not just a tool, but a partner in making lives better. The town had become a hub for collaboration between the public and private sectors, where new ideas were always welcomed, tested, and refined. Local businesses, once concerned only with the everyday demands of commerce, now saw themselves as active participants in the community's progress. They recognized that their role wasn't just to serve customers, but to contribute to the larger goal of creating a better, more sustainable future. One of the most impactful changes had occurred within the schools. The energy that had started with Elon Musk's visit had transformed how students saw themselves in the world of innovation. It wasn't just about learning from textbooks. It was about understanding how their skills could be applied to solve real-world problems. Robotics clubs, coding camps, and hackathons became regular events, with students not just learning how to build things, but learning how to make those things meaningful. Students regularly collaborated with first responders, building solutions that helped save time and increase safety during emergencies. By blending the worlds of technology and public service, these young innovators were already becoming the leaders of tomorrow. In fact, one of the town's most prestigious awards, the Innovators of the Year Award, was established in honor of that fateful day when Musk had walked into McDonald's. The award was given annually to those who demonstrated outstanding contributions to improving their community through technology, service, and collaboration. It was a reminder that everyone, no matter their background or occupation, had the ability to make a difference. The town's youth, inspired by the example of the first responders and Musk's willingness to engage with them, were growing up with a clear understanding that the future wasn't something to wait for. It was something to create. Nationally, the movement continued to gain traction. Other cities took note of the changes in the small town, and soon, the collaboration between technology and emergency services became a model that others sought to replicate. Government grants and initiatives were created to fund the development of new technologies for first responders. Municipalities across the country began to recognize the critical importance of not only investing in cutting-edge technology, but in fostering relationships between the public sector and the tech industry to ensure that the needs of those on the front lines were always a priority. Perhaps the most lasting legacy of Musk's visit was the shift in how society viewed the role of first responders. No longer were they seen as mere servants of the public good, Though their work had always been invaluable, they were now recognized as true partners in the quest to improve society. Technology companies, having seen firsthand how their innovations could improve the lives of those who put themselves in danger every day, began to work more closely with first responders to tailor their products to their needs. The result was not just the creation of new tools, but the creation of a new philosophy. Technology, when developed with empathy and real-world applications in mind, could be a powerful ally in the pursuit of a safer, more connected world. And for Elon Musk, the impact of that lunch in McDonald's had far exceeded his expectations. Though he had been busy with his usual ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, he found himself more involved in the conversation around tech and public service than he had ever anticipated. It wasn't just about launching rockets or developing electric cars anymore. It was about ensuring that the technology of tomorrow worked in harmony with the needs of those who kept society running. Musk had often been criticized for his bold ambitions, but after that lunch, his ideas were seen through a new lens, one that balanced innovation with purpose, one that recognized the importance of human connection and service in all technological pursuits. In interviews and speeches, Musk would continue to reference that day in McDonald's, speaking about how a single conversation had inspired him to refocus some of his efforts on ensuring that the world's most cutting-edge technologies were used not just for the privileged few, but for everyone, especially those who serve the public, who work tirelessly to keep others safe. And as the world progressed, he saw how the initial spark ignited in that small town had turned into a wildfire of change. The town itself had become a symbol of what could happen when communities, big or small, were given the opportunity to dream big and work together. The legacy of that moment, the conversations, the collaborations, and the continued drive to create meaningful, real-world solutions was now ingrained in the fabric of the town's identity. What had once been a small, quiet place had transformed into a model of innovation, where technology and humanity were seamlessly intertwined. For the first responders who had been part of that lunch, the legacy of the conversation with Musk would live on in their work and in the work of those who followed in their footsteps. They had become not just defenders of public safety, but champions of a future that was collaborative, inclusive, and driven by the belief that technology should work for everyone. And as for the rest of the world, the lesson was clear. The future is not something that simply happens. It is something we build together, step by step, conversation by conversation, with an understanding that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, it is the human connections we make, our willingness to support and elevate one another, that will shape the world for generations to come. A full circle. As the years continued to unfold, the town where it all began remained a testament to what could happen when people came together with a shared purpose. The movement sparked by that fateful meeting in McDonald's had created lasting change, not just in technology, but in the very way communities viewed each other and their roles in the world. It was now a town where innovation thrived, where the once segmented worlds of public service and technology had become intertwined. Children who grew up there no longer saw their futures confined to traditional careers. They saw themselves as pioneers, capable of blending their passions for service with the tools of tomorrow. The schools had become incubators of new ideas, and the town's leaders were those who had grown up with a deep understanding of both the technology they used and the human connections they served. Sarah, now a renowned figure in EOS, often reflected on how far the community had come. What began as a small spark, a simple question, a chance conversation, had turned into a beacon of possibility. But she would be the first to remind others that it wasn't just about the technology. It was about the connections. It was about people seeing each other, hearing each other, and working together towards something bigger than themselves. In the years following that transformative lunch, first responders across the country began to share their own stories of change, inspired by the lessons of that day. They worked alongside tech innovators to design systems that better understood the human element, the urgency of their work, the lives on the line, and the people they aimed to protect. The tools they now had access to were no longer just products of theoretical engineering. They were life-saving innovations created by listening to the people who used them. The lesson from that day remained simple, yet profound. True progress isn't just about building the future. It's about building a future that serves us all, especially those who give their lives in service to others. Whether it's a first responder putting out a fire, a paramedic saving a life, or a tech developer designing the next generation of tools, each of us has a role in creating a safer, more connected world. Elon Musk, too, often revisited that day in McDonald's, a moment that, though brief, had changed his outlook on the importance of grounding technology in human need. It had reminded him that true innovation should always be about more than just advancing the latest gadget or reaching for the stars. It should be about making the lives of everyday people better, safer, and more fulfilling. And for all his ambition to launch rockets to Mars, Musk realized that sometimes the most impactful change comes from focusing on what's right in front of us. The movement that had begun so unexpectedly had brought not only technological breakthroughs, but also an important societal shift. It had inspired people everywhere to think differently, not just about technology, but about the potential of their own actions. It had proved that, in the end, the power to make a difference lies in the simplest of things: a conversation, a shared idea, a willingness to see each other, and a deep mutual respect for the roles we all play in shaping the world. And so, as the town looked ahead, its legacy remained clear. Change wasn't something that happened overnight, and it wasn't something that came from a single person or a single event. Change was, and always would be, a collective effort. The lesson learned from that day in McDonald's was not only that technology could change the world, but that people working together, respecting each other's contributions, and caring for each other could spark the kind of change that could truly make the world a better place. In the end, the quiet town, once just another dot on the map, had transformed into something extraordinary, a place where technology, humanity, and service were intertwined, each fueling the other toward a future that was better for everyone. And it all began with one small act, a simple conversation that reminded the world what really mattered. The future is built together, one conversation, one connection, one act of service at a time. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.